Hi, welcome to Hamilton and Hazen, Behind the Mic. Join author M.L. Hamilton and me, I'm narrator Kelly Hazen, as we discuss our latest audiobook. Born from our 7 years of collaboration and more than 60 audiobooks we've produced together, listen to the ins, the outs, the ups, and the downs, the inside track you love to follow, Behind the Mic.
Hey, welcome to Behind the Mic. This is very exciting. This is our 21st episode. Yay! Welcome, ML Hamilton. How are you today?
Very well. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited. This is the first time, I always say that. I think this is the first time we just finished. We're talking about there's so many firsts. There's so much to celebrate. So we're talking about our very first collaboration on a romantic suspense.
Yes.
Our new audiobook called When We Were Young. It is coming out. The release date is August 27th for the ebook, paperback, and audiobook. They're going to release all together, which is very exciting. I think this might be the third or fourth time that we've released everything together. So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Another celebration for us. This has been quite the summer with the release of When We Were Young. We will have actually released 3 audiobooks this summer. That's very exciting. Considering just a few months ago, we were talking about why it was Christmas in April. We got on the horse and 3 audiobooks. And we just sold our 50,000th audiobook digital download. So congratulations, Ms. Hamilton.
Congratulations, Ms. Hazen.
Thank you. It's very exciting. I was just thinking when I was listening to the intro to Behind the Mic, I'm going to need to re-record that. Because I think I say we've sold 30,000 audiobooks or something like that. We've kind of gone past that mark.
Yeah, we do need to re-record that. That's right.
So tell me, I mean, my first question. So I have so many questions that came up when you yet again surprised me and said, "Hey, let's take a really hard left turn and do something new." So my first question, it's kind of multiple questions. Why a romantic suspense? And then it always seems like it's this time of year when you get a wild hair and completely throw our production schedule under the bus and go, "Oh, I think I'll write a screenplay. I think I'll write a book every month. I think I'll stand on my head and spin." So I wonder, what is it about this time of year?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so true. And I have to say, before I answer your question, I have to say, you're always game though. You're always like, okay, this is the new roller coaster we're taking now. And you never ever try and pin my feet to the ground. Like I have to say, you're always just like, okay, here we go. And we're all
What are you gonna do? No, Michelle, stop it. Put down the romantic suspense and walk away.
Oh, I don't know, but that's what makes our partnership great is that you are totally on board for all my wild hairs.
Well,
When I zig, you zag.
no, well, I can tell you it's fun, right? It's fun because and I have more to say later about this, but I mean, you're the queen of mystery and suspense. I mean, you really, that's your comfort zone, right? That's your pocket. And it's good to get outside. We're actually going to talk about this on a number of levels, how good it is to get outside your comfort zone, one's comfort zone. I mean, it is for me. And so it's always like, yeah, let's see, let's shake it up, but answer questions. Answer
Yes,
questions.
I will. So what happened with this one was I about March,
Mhm.
the state fair came back and got back to me and they said, we're going to reimagine the whole author booth at the state fair and it's going to be beach themed. And it would be nice if the authors came in Hawaiian print shirts. We had everything kind of fitting to the theme. We did our posters to the theme. And so I thought, well, darn it, I don't have a beach set novel. Like, I have never written one set on the beach, and I should have one. And so then I started playing with this idea, and it became this romantic suspense. And I thought, well, I've never done a romantic suspense, and why not try it and see? I mean, I don't think I am not a bodice ripper kind of person. I am not, gonna have any NC-17 stuff in my books, but the idea of writing a romantic suspense kind of fit a little bit of mystery into it. And so I just started doing it and I set it in one of my favorite places on the planet. And once I started doing that and I started describing the setting, I got really into it and I got really excited about the novel. And so that's the whole reason why. Now, why do I get these wild, crazy things in the summer? I think it's just the not having the pressure cooker, the crucible of being in teaching allows me to sort of experiment and try something that I wouldn't normally try during the school year because I'm so under pressure and my creativity is kind of stifled. And I think being in the summer just lets my creativity kind of come to the foreground. And then I get these ideas that, well, I've never written this. Can I write that? Let's try it. And then Kelly will go along with it.
Yeah. Well, I won't get any complaints from Kelly. Um, that takes me to a new place. Um, in terms of the fans will love knowing that you're entering into, if things have stayed the same, your last year of teaching,
Yes.
which means in about 5, 6, 7, 8 months, you're going to be living the life of free creativity. How do you feel going into this last year of teaching?
This summer, like you said, last summer was so difficult because of my father's illness, but this summer has been so much fun. I was telling you, like, you and I have just gone gangbusters. Like, I mean, it's not even just three because we did just before that, we did Watchers of Eldon. And then so we've just really churned out material this summer. It's like we were both on the same page and we were just
Listen, April, Watchers, Zion, right? Chai Tea, When We Were Young. So
yeah.
that's 4 right there. And was there another one?
No, that's it. That's the
That's 4. I was wrong. 4.
yeah. So, what I'm excited about is I've so enjoyed this summer. I've told you before, you and I in our private conversations, I've told you I've been worried about retiring and I've been worried about what do I do to fill my time? And this summer really gave me the opportunity to fill my time with what I want to do, not what anyone else tells me to do. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it and I've enjoyed that freedom. And so I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, it's going to be bittersweet. Teaching is something I've done for 32 years. But at the same time, it's time to do something new. And this is really where my interests lie.
That's really exciting. I'm really excited. You had mentioned that you were going to keep a journal or something along the lines of ramblings.
Yeah.
Um, but that was sort of earmarked with your last days of teaching. Do
Yeah.
you still intend to do that?
Absolutely. I've started it. It will be at, 30 years of teaching. And I think it's like 30 years of teaching and so many students and so many hours. And it is going to be kind of, it at times is pretty critical. It's going to be a very critical look at public education in this country and what teachers face and what teachers have to navigate. And so that will be another very different thing for us to take on because I try to keep some positivity in most of what I write. I mean, we write about hard things, right? We deal, you and I deal with hard things. And this book is no different. This book is dealing with hard things. But usually there's a, you know, lightness to it or a brevity to it or, funny scenes or something that lighten it. This one will be pretty critical about, why we're having the teacher shortage we're having and what needs to change. So it'll be a departure for us.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to that. And I think also based on our private conversations, I think I think that's a really positive way to navigate through what could be a trying or emotionally trying time.
Yeah.
To say, okay, I've got to slog through because I know you thought last year was going to be your last year. And when you discovered that you had another year to go, it was almost unbearable. Or, I mean, maybe that's too strong a word,
Oh,
but
that's right.
yeah, taking, taking, it's always that thing, isn't it? When you take a negative and you find you find a way to accentuate the positive, right? Or you find an element that you can imbue into a negative situation or into a challenge or into an obstacle and turn it around and give yourself something to focus on that's positive. And I admire you for doing that. I think it's a really, and I think the fruit of that will be absolutely fascinating.
We'll see. I hope so.
I think you should call it In the Trenches. So, so what interested me as a reader as I started now, so now let's talk about When We Were Young, um, which is the name of our new romantic suspense. um, the thing that was interesting to me is, it's like you sent me this because this came out of nowhere. We hadn't talked about this or anything. It's just like all of a sudden I get this text. What's your schedule like? I have a new romantic suspense that I wrote for the fair, but it's like, oh, okay. Okay, romantic suspense. Um, so what was interesting to me being intimately, intimate, knowing your work intimately, as I think I do as a reader and a fan, is that, geez, there's no crime. I mean, so, and there is suspense and there's actually a number of crimes,
Yeah.
not to give anything away, but it's not like, as you say, it doesn't revolve around the plot. The story doesn't revolve around this plot device of a murder or a crime. It revolves around the relationships. And I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that's part of what makes it a romance, right? The relationships and the so my discovery, what was interesting is that you had to create tension and build suspense in utilizing different tools than you normally do. Is that true, or
Yeah.
what were the challenges of this?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. It was, there was some similarities, it's the planting the clues, and you caught one early on, which I won't give away, but you picked up, you sent me a text at one point. I don't know if you remember saying there's this weird eerie feeling I have when I'm reading this. And so you picked up on some of those clues. So it was planting those clues, but they really needed to, in a murder mystery, they're fairly front.
Yeah.
And this
Front load.
was
Yeah.
very back leaning, and it was very much buried and so a discerning reader will pick up sort of the um suspense elements, but you could, if you were just reading as a beach read, you could kind of miss those at first because it's not so front leaning, and maybe even for our readers, they're not prepared for it, because they're with a murder mystery, you're looking for the clues. I mean, that's just, we all know that. With
Right.
you may miss some of the elements just because it's not quite as in your face.
Right. And I mean that in a romantic suspense, and I've recorded a few of those, quite a few of those, the suspense can be tied up in the relationship itself. It doesn't necessarily have to be an event outside of the relationship. And that's one of the things that's challenging about recording it, is that and it was interesting for me because there's a mindset that goes with, okay, this is an ML Hamilton book, and I just like plug in, and there's certain things, and again, not that you write formulaic, you don't, but there's certain, it's like when we do a Peyton Brooks, the tension is going to build, kind of as you pointed out before, the tension is going to build as solving the crime escalates.
Yes.
Right. So the tension, the taut line of tension that I have to
Yeah.
create vocally, the map is in solving the crime.
Yes.
And so one of the challenges in when we were young was figuring out how to create sufficient tension with less action.
Yeah. So there is times where the tension ramps up and then it just dissipates completely. And I do think that would be very challenging from your perspective because, like you said, I think you said that beautifully with Peyton, that tension kind of remains throughout the whole book and maybe, starts taking an upward trajectory. But with this, it was sort of like ramp up and then boom, like down to nothing again. And as a book and trying very hard not to give anything away, but as the book progresses, our main character, Hazel Wallace, creates that. She ramps up the tension herself and then like backs out of it and kind of
Yeah, that was, and this was in some respects, and this gets us into a whole new thing because this is really interesting. It's an emotional incline, is what I discovered, right? It's that instead of the action
yes.
giving me the incline, that the book, it's wait, where's the book goes like that and then comes down, right? And it's a really long incline and then the climax and then a pretty quick down. This one, it's the same curve, but instead of the action propelling that incline, it's the emotional journey.
Yeah.
Even though it's attached to the action, right? It's the emotional journey. And it is that, it's sort of like the Tour de France. When they're in the Alps, it's up and then down and then up and then down and then up and then down. And the thing about it is that, so like chai tea, there were a couple of times where it was like, what's wrong with you? Put on your big girl underwear, start, with that, and I think it's really easy. I think people do that. I think a lot of people write off romances as sappy, sentimental, and I realized that I was doing that just because that's not how it was like with not Zion in the last chai tea, but I guess her sister. Yeah, Zion's sister in chai tea. It's this, it's really because, and it's funny because I think it's because I connect with Peyton so completely and just kind of, I mean, I just assume Peyton and I are the same person, which is probably alarming to you because I think you assume you and Peyton are the same person,
my
right?
alter ego, yeah.
So I guess the three of us are Peyton. But well, but anyway, I had to. So if that's my attitude when I'm recording, if I'm not taking that character seriously and holding space, which is the new, if I'm not holding space for that character and the way she or he or they deal with stuff, then I discover when I start to listen to some of the narration work that I do in the production phase, that it's not really authentic, it's not really organic, that it's sort of, and that's a real disservice. It's a disservice to the writing, it's a disservice to the character, and it's a disservice to the listener and to the people that really love romances, and that kind of thing. And so I had to really kind of, there were a bunch of times where I had to hit pause and have a talk with myself. And because it's really easy to get in that, it's a train, you get on the train and you go when you're recording. And if I'm in the back of my mind, if I'm judging,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
I never thought about that, but you're right. That would be very hard. So how do you, what does that talk sound like? What is that? Because yeah, that could be hard if you're judging what the character's actions are,
the
not in their headspace then, right? You're external from them. So how do
well,
you put yourself into their headspace?
well, with Hazel, so as you pointed out, with Hazel Wallace of When We Were Young, she's coming to realizations in her life, and then she sort of shakes her head and sort of subconsciously goes, I don't want to go there right now.
Yeah.
And um and it's kind of interesting. It kind of parallels, this is going to be way off the beaten track, but it kind of parallels where I'm studying in my yoga right now and meditation. Is I've spent a lot of, the way your ego and your mind takes control, and somebody has to be right. Right. And I'm realizing so much. I make all these decisions about things, and
Yeah.
I'm wrong, and I'm wrong so often. And I used to think I was never wrong, right? I'm always right. I'm right. I know I'm right. And I have been, and sometimes I am, but being right is like so not important.
Yeah.
So when I get out of that mindset and just accept this is how this person is reacting to this situation, why would that be?
Right.
And then I begin to allow myself to see their humanity, and that not everybody's built like me or like how I want to think I'm built, right? Because I'm probably not built that way either. And methinks I doth protest too much. So anyway, you know, yeah.
It makes me think of something else though, Kelly, and I wonder if you could speak to this too. So Hazel's young. She's 32. Um, to me, at my age now, that's very young. And does it become, because I think about the way I reacted to things when I was younger was very Hazel-like. And I think as I've aged, it's like you saying, I don't have the necessity to be right anymore. I approach things differently. I don't get as wound up about things as I used to get wound up about. And I feel like my my way of approaching things is a little. I feel like as I get older, um, I don't I don't put up with as much crap as I used to, but I also kind of tend to not judge as harshly as I used to. And I wonder if that's something that's coming in. Is it harder to do a younger character because they're still learning, they're still navigating their way through life, and you're coming at it from, a lifetime of experience and a lifetime of maybe doing the things that Hazel does and have grown beyond that, and so it's having to kind of take off some of that experience and put yourself back into, a younger mindset that is not quite as advanced or as experienced.
Well, that's interesting. I've never really thought of it like that, to tell you the truth. Um, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, I agree 100% with the things that you're describing about getting older, about not getting wound up as much, about not choosing to just roll with it, and just, and I mean, yeah, I think that's all about getting older and wiser. That's the great thing about, the great things.
Beauty.
But it, what? I'm sorry.
The beauty of it, right? It's
Yeah, there's got to be something. No, I'm kidding. It's funny because I don't think about Hazel being younger. I don't think about them being younger. I think that's because if I do that, then I'm here and they're over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have to just take them on and let it be a difference in, and then be willing to release my own mindset,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, yeah. I mean, I could get into this whole thing. It's like when you do a role in theater, right? You have anywhere from 10 to 5 to 3 weeks, 5 days to 3 weeks to develop this character, right? And to move from your own way of thinking into the way the character thinks. And with recording an audiobook, I don't want to say it's more superficial, but it's certainly quicker.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there is that reality check. I mean, that audiobook, the world of the audiobook reality, the reality of the audiobook check. And that's, that's when but it was funny. You were talking about Hazel getting wound up and just, I mean, she just goes into she's going to tell people what she thinks. And it was funny because I just now might be too bad since the book's already recorded. I just now realized how alike Hazel and I are in that regard.
Yeah.
When I was the age of that character. I mean, I was telling everybody what to do.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and she does that. She steps into situations and she just, she'll say, this might not be any of my business. And then she goes forward and she tells
Yeah.
what she thinks they should do in these cases. And yet,
This might not be any of my business, but I'm going to make it my business.
exactly. But the funny thing is that in her own life, when people try and intervene and talk to her about her own life, she pushes them away and she doesn't want that intervention. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, why do you think people love romances? Why do you think? I mean, it's not. It's so in the research that I've done, in terms of popularity of genre,
Oh, it's number one.
mystery. No, actually, it's not. Mystery and suspense. Number one, way number one. Distant, distant, distant second, self-help books. Third, fantasy, and then romance.
Really?
And yeah, and then you can break all that, and you can break those down into their subdivisions. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, romance is kind of at the end, and we have a wonderful storyteller productions. My studio has a wonderful review team, and that review the audiobooks right after they come out and offer honest reviews to sort of get the buzz going. They when you're a member of storyteller review team, you don't have to listen to anything you don't want to listen to, and they are much less likely to listen to the romances and the romantic suspenses. Everybody wants the mysteries, but that's also kind of how they were developed. I mean, it wasn't random that they came onto the team, but they came because they love you. But anyway, I mean, it's like I was thinking about, what do I look for when I like for a rom-com or for a romantic movie? And I think of like some of the classics, right? Like Sleepless in Seattle and When Harry Met Sally, and those are romances. Those are, and I do look for humor. I look for it to be smart.
Yeah.
I look for it to be a relationship that I can identify with.
Yeah.
The dynamics are things that I can identify with. I look for it to be setting, like aspects to it, whether it's the employment of the characters or I do look for that, and I look for it to surprise me. And I do have to say, I look for a feel good, kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling at the end of it, which I remember texting you when I finished recording when we were young, because this was one of the books where you sent to me chapters. I didn't read the whole thing before I started recording it. And so I really wanted to find out what was going to happen. I really didn't know. And I kind of thought I had an idea about what was going to happen with the suspense part of it, but I really didn't know where the romance was going to go. And I really wanted to know, which surprised me, right? It's like, what? And uh, what's my point? What was I talking about?
You were asking why romance was.
Oh, right. When I finished the book, the first thing I said to you when I texted you is, I feel so good. You know, I feel good. I don't feel bad. I don't feel sad about society. I don't, I don't, it's maybe. So what is it? What do you look for in your romantic entertainment? And why do you think people love romance books?
So I think everybody loves a good rom-com, right? I mean, it's that feel good, and it's
Like
that.
it's a break.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think of the ones that just don't live up. You need that happily ever after. You need that the problems to fall aside, or them to choose that romance, their relationship is more important than whatever obstacles are in front of them. I think it's that hope that we all have from the time we're fairly young, that there's going to be somebody in our corner. There's going to be somebody that is our other half, and that's going, whatever that is, and it's going to complete us in a way. And there's going to be somebody that's continually there for us. And I think that we hold that hope alive throughout our whole lives, and other things come in. We have children, we have friends, dear friends, but I think we always.
Pet,
Pets, yeah,
pet.
yeah, but I think we always hope for that other part that's gonna be the partner, the partner of life. And I think even for people who don't wind up with a partner for life, it's just that idea that there's somebody there maybe, and that hope. I love the movie Hope Floats. I love everything about that movie. And it's that same idea, it's that um no matter what happens to us, we could still have somebody in our corner.
It's really interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, I mean, you watch how I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth. We've seen a lot of tension and upset regarding the male female relationship,
Yes.
and consequently, and violence even.
Yes.
And consequently, I think I've noticed, I mean, and I don't know, what do I know? But I feel like I'm more aware of an increase, and maybe it's just my awareness, or maybe it's an actual increase in the alternative relationships around us.
Yeah.
What are the alternatives to the traditional male-female relationship?
Yeah.
And 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 just, and then the way that everything we hear about what's happening to the idea of being a man, and what is masculinity, and masculinity has such become almost a dirty word, and just how it's what you said, there's almost, I mean, I remember having a bad thing happening to me that's not unlike what happened to Hazel. And I had allowed myself to get into a relationship. I had allowed myself to believe that I'd read too many books, I'd seen too many movies. It wasn't like that. You weren't going to find a soulmate. You weren't going to find somebody that you were going to be in love with for the rest of your life. It wasn't going to be like that. And so I settled for something, for a relationship, and literally knew going in I was settling.
Yeah.
I that was the word I used. And then it turned out to be a very bad relationship.
Yeah.
And not that those two things are, you know,
Right. Right.
mutually inclusive. But I guess I don't know where I'm going with this. I mean, I've had friends that say, "Oh, that's just horse poo-poo being in a relationship. It's all animalistic. It's all about, procreating. It's all about continuing the species. But I mean, almost everything revolves around love or around,
Yeah.
even if a love of what you do, there's some kind, I don't know.
No, you're right. I think about, so on Friday I went to a memorial for one of the authors. Um,
Mm.
Wonderful man. Had cancer at the same time as my father, and he and I would talk often about what my father was going through. And I found out at the memorial, I found out more about him. He had been married to his wife, and they were about to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary when she died suddenly. And so then he was still a very vigorous man, living out his life. He was very into golf. He met a woman, and she was at the memorial, and she said, I guess you could say we went on dates, but we were just friends. We were friends for 25 years. They went on trips together. They went to see musicals together. They went to see plays together. They went to see concerts together. And I got the impression that it didn't have to be passion or anything. They just liked each other, and they were there for each other. And even up until the end, she was with him. And they had a very deep connection. And it didn't necessarily have to be romantic in the way that we think of it as sexual. To me, I think we've taken that word romance and we've kind of bastardized it into being only a sexual relationship with somebody. When during the American literary experience, there was the romantic periods, and it wasn't about romance in the sense of, male, female, heterosexual, sexual romance. It was romance in the sense that everything is beautiful and good and happy. And we've kind of moved away from that terminology and made it something that it doesn't have to be. Romance could be just somebody that's there for you, that is, you know and connection that you make, so you're not alone, so you're not um isolated, somebody who has your back, and
Mm.
and I think for me, that's the beauty of a romance, is taking it out of that dynamic of two people at odds trying to get what they want in a relationship, where it's just a companion. It's somebody who, completes you in a way that nobody else does.
Connection.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, I have one more question for you. Um, and I want to say just from I want to say that I wanted to thank you first for writing this and for making this departure into the romantic suspense. There I had the opportunity, and I didn't realize it till I was in the middle of it. And we actually talked about this before we hit the record button today, about how I'm recording your work faster and faster all the time. And you asked why I thought that was, and I gave you a variety of reasons. But now, and it just because I made notes, I made a note. Um, there's a freedom in starting a new series.
Yes.
And I think that's why this audiobook recorded so fast. Because, and it's just in the it was funny, the note I wrote is oh, where is it? Oh no. I don't have to try to remember what's gone before. You
Yeah.
know, I don't have to sort of pave that road. I don't, in terms of the story, in terms of where these characters are coming from and stuff. But I also just technically, I don't have to go back and look up character voices to make sure I'm in the pocket. I mean, everything could just flow organically from this brand new place. And it was really nice. It was fresh. It was fresh because it wasn't a mystery, that genre that we work in a lot. It
Yeah.
was just everything about this. It was like a cleanse.
Yeah. No, it was that way for me writing it. Yeah, it was a palate cleanser. Uh,
Yeah.
because I think I thought this, it's funny you bring this up because I was thinking this the other day. I was thinking I take such copious notes as I'm writing because I'm always trying to prepare for the next book in the series and making sure I remember what went before. And it takes me so much time to do all of that. And and then when I'm writing the next book in the series, I've got to go back and I've got to listen to the previous book and make sure I remembered all the things and make sure that my notes were adequate enough and make sure I'm staying true to that character. And this one, it just kind of revealed itself as I was writing it. And then when I got done with it, I thought I don't have to come back to these characters. They to me, they're done. And I don't have to worry about that. I don't have that tension or that obligation to be true to those characters. And so there's something really that palette cleansing about having a standalone novel with new characters that I just get to have that joy of discovering who they are, you know? Um,
We should file that away as a, just as a, oh, that's right. Like Lauren Groff, I went to hear her speak when she released her last new book. And she was talking about it's like, she'll write, she'll have an idea for a scene in the book she's working on, and she'll just write it and then immediately throw it away.
yeah,
It was just for the experience of writing it. I mean, and just to kind of get the cobwebs out, or to get herself from going in a particular direction. And that's exactly what this sounds like and exactly how I felt about this. And I didn't realize that going in. It wasn't until I was in the middle of it, and it was really valuable. It was just like before I recorded this, I recorded a lit RPG book, a literary role-playing game book. And everything about this author, everything about this book is completely different to everything we do. It's more narration, hardly any dialogue. There's characters, but the character development is done through narration and action, not through interaction.
yeah,
And just the author, I think, just in terms of sentence structure, I mean, everything about it. And it was a wonderful thing to do and then come back to you, to
yeah,
come back to
yeah,
what no, because it's almost like it stretched my abilities in a way that when I came back to what I know and enjoy the most, I was even more flexible
yeah.
and able to explore and be creative even more. It was wonderful for my work with you. Um, the last thing I want to ask you about is that one of my favorite things about When We Were Young was recording. There were 2 or 3 scenes between Hazel Wallace, our heroine, and When We Were Young, and she becomes acquainted with the woman that lives next door to her at the beach, Annie. Um, much older, and more than twice her age.
Yes.
And those scenes were so true. They were so they just were so true. I almost wondered if you were I wrote channeling someone, or if it is this if those scenes were based on someone in your real life, or to what I mean. There was a scene that occurred at the end of chapter 5, and a scene that occurred at the end of or during chapter 12. And they were just so true that I got goosebumps after I recorded those scenes. And I just so I wondered where did that relationship, where did the character of Annie, where did that relationship come from? Is it something that you've experienced in your life, or did you just conjure it for this book?
So I have had the very fortunate experience in my life to be acquainted with women that were older. One was my paternal grandmother, who I connected with when I was 18. And I had come out here to go to college, and I went and made a concerted effort to have a relationship with her that I hadn't had when I was a child. And she was an amazing woman, raised 12 kids and sometimes um, a cousin, often because people did that then, people would shuffle kids around. And so at times she was raising 13 kids pretty much by herself. And all of her kids became very just crazily intelligent. My dad, my aunts and uncles, just extremely intelligent human beings who were very interesting people. And so I had that relationship with her. Obviously, there was vast difference in age. And then when I first started writing, once I became an author, I made a connection with a woman who ran the author booth. She actually was the founder of the author booth for the state fair.
I
And
remember.
yeah, she and I had a many year relationship, probably about 10 years before unfortunately, she has dementia now, but I would spend a lot of time with her planning for the fair, but there were times where we would just talk and I would just listen to her stories or her life experiences. And so those to me are all amalgamation of who Annie is. I've been very fortunate to have these older women, very progressive women. Um, Naida was a PhD in had his PhD in sociology. So very independent, very intelligent women who um, were able to impart wisdom in a way that wasn't preachy or condescending. And I had very close relationships, with both. And they often, when I channel anyone, an older woman, they're the models for who I think of, um, for what it means to carry that torch. It's kind of, um, I think of it for myself as I'm getting older, and I talk with my daughters-in-laws, women need other women. And I think we desperately need I enjoy my younger daughters-in-laws and their philosophies and their experiences with the world, and I hope that I provide them with my experience, and I think
I-
that's essential.
I've had that. I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. It's very difficult, I think, for daughters and mothers and fathers and sons. Maybe less for father. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I have friends who say, "Oh, my mother's my best friend," and it's like I can't even begin to imagine that. It's like, oh my God. Um, we're recording this. It's the closing ceremonies of the 2024 Paris Olympics are tonight, and NBC has clearly made a big deal about. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't involved in bringing over the athletes' families and just this incredible family connection and the athletes talking about these people that sacrifice so much for them to have their careers as athletes and professional athletes. And I just think like, oh my God. And Bruce talks about the same thing. I mean, he was a very good high school baseball pitcher and nobody noticed. Nobody, if someone had invested just the slightest amount of time. So
Yeah.
it really is remarkable, these families that have supported their kids. And I take this circuitous route to come back to what you said. I have a couple of girlfriends who are much younger than I am, you know, much younger than I am. And I find myself thinking, and I have a stepson, I don't have kids, and blood kids. I don't have a daughter, and it's different with boys. I think you might agree. Um eh, I don't know, the word legacy comes to mind, and that seems like such a self-involved thing, right? Because kind of when you're gone, you're gone. But to if my experience, if I have in any way helped anybody, a young woman understand a part of her life that I had to mine myself, you know,
Navigate.
the axe against the
Yeah.
hard wall,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure it out. If there's something, yeah, if I can in some way say something that illuminates something, and I do think that's a really wonderful, and I do think it's uniquely female.
It is. I think it is. And we're at such an inflection point, aren't we, in this country of what it means to be a woman. And I think about I just recently I didn't watch it during all the hype, but I think about recently I watched the Barbie movie. And there's that just brilliant, brilliant scene in there with America Fiera, where she talks about what it means to be a woman and how hard it is to be a woman, how impossible it is. And that scene, when I was watching, I just was like leaning forward, like, oh my God, that was just some brilliant writing. And her acting of it was just nailed it. And I think about how hard it is for my daughters-in-laws right now to be a woman and to be of a childbearing age as a woman and to be navigating all of just the hatred and anger and fear. I was listening to some women literally in tears talking about what it means to them to have Kamala Harris be on the Democratic ticket, and literally in tears, and they were about the age of my daughters-in-law, and they were talking about the fear that they've carried inside of them, this just gut-wrenching fear, um, that in some ways you and I don't have to worry about, and yet I do, and I'm sure you do, because I see our young people. I have a granddaughter, you have a granddaughter. What does that world look like? And
Yeah.
think if we can't be there to bolster them, what are we doing? We have to. We fought the battle. Our mothers fought the battle for rights. Apparently that battle's not done yet. And so we have to pick up that sword or whatever it is and continue to fight to make sure that those that are coming up behind us can live and it not be impossible to be a woman.
I every time I hear about somebody having a child, I always think, God, that's so optimistic.
Yeah.
You
Doesn't
know?
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean that's a little pessimistic, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think there's no better way than what you said, not what I said. Edit out what I said. No. I think we should stop this. I think that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I'm excited about this book. It's one of my favorite covers. It's very fresh for us. I'm very pleased with this villain.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's very what you talked about, the America Ferrera passage in the Barbie movie. I don't know if that had anything to do, but you wrote a really beautiful passage about that same thing, being a woman in this day and age, and a woman's relationship to the world. And if you're curious about it, it's available on SoundCloud where you can hear it or just listen to or read the book.
Yeah. So should we preview what's coming up for us in the rest of this short 4 months until the end?
You do it. You do it.
So we are going to be starting work on the next Ruth Cypress, which is the children's book, and that will be out fingers crossed October 1st for Halloween.
The
And
name.
it's the abandoned black cat, the case of the abandoned black cat.
So perfect for Halloween.
Yes.
It's third and fourth graders, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I will tell you, I've had people on the review team that they considered it a palate cleanser for them. It was a quick listen, it was fun, it was light, and so
Yeah.
there you go.
And then we'll have our Christmas mystery for Christmas this year. Imagine that. Yeah. Yeah. So
What's the name?
That's the one I need to look up and see what the name of it is. That's the next one, and it will be Chasing Courage. And then it will be as we
That's Deputy Missing Persons Detective
Everly
Beckett and her private eye compatriot Isaac
Stern.
Isaac Stern. There it is. I was gonna say Stone. Isaac Stern. Yeah, no, that's fun. They're fun.
And
That's
then for all of our listeners who I know you've been waiting a long time, but we just were talking earlier, it's going to be a Peyton winner. And Peyton will be here. We'll have 2 back to back. We'll have the cross burning case. And I'm not setting a date for that.
which is an extension of the dating apps, or not the dating apps, but the
division.
Yeah, homicide division, right? Peyton Brooks homicide division.
Yeah, hate crimes.
Oh, right.
Peyton Brooks, then we'll have the next
FBI hate crimes. It's Peyton Brooks FBI hate crimes division.
Yes. And then we'll have in the homicide division one, we will have Fallen Vale, which will be our 4th in that series.
The early cases.
Exactly. So that's what's coming up. And we don't have release dates for those, but look for our next Rue Cypress, October 1st, and our next Christmas mystery, Chase for Christmas. Yes, we're gonna do it this year.
We're gonna do it.
All right. So to conclude our summer of excellence, this has been Behind the Mic, number 21, When We Were Young.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Hamilton and Hazen Behind the Mic. Visit authormlhamilton.net and kellyhazennarrates.com to join our newsletters for more insider news and views. Today's episode is sponsored by Phoenix Publication Services. PPS, Digital Shepherds. Let us ignite your writing goals.